Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our custom services. This is a presentation that we've put together here. It's specifically, as you know, for EU transit movements via the GB land bridge. So what I'm going to do, just before I start presenting the material to you, is just to highlight a few housekeeping issues here. First of all, the presentation I expect will run about 1 hour 30 minutes. There's no hard and fast rule in this, and my plan is to take you through the material here. It could be 20-25 minutes. That will be followed with question and answer session. Because everybody is anonymized here and any questions will come in, originally we were going to plan it that you would just use the chat facility on the presentation. What we've decided now is if you can, please simply email us. If you have any queries during the presentation, email Glenn, Glenn, at hannontransport.com. And the reason for that is that we will then see who has sent in the query and we can then respond to that specifically. Now, what I would also say is that all the material will be published on our website in the next couple of days, and we also then will collate all the question and answers that you've sent in to us, and those will also be put on the website. What I will try and do is keep an eye on the emails and the queries as they come in, and I will then try and answer as many of those as I can. But the main thing that I want to do for you this morning is really to take you through the material. As I say, it'll be 20-25 minutes. I don't want to overrun this because I'm really conscious that people's concentration levels and people are under pressure, so I don't want this to become too lengthy. I did think about the material here just before I done the presentation and what level. And one of the things that's really important, and I hope this is conveyed in the material, this is not going to be a crash course in customs procedures. This is going to be really the materials pitched at a level which is going to be fairly high level. It's going to be very pragmatic. It's going to essentially show you, the customer, what we, Hannon, can offer you in terms of customs services. So it's going to be very pragmatic, and as I say, it is going to be fairly high level. I want to avoid specifically overloading people with pages and pages and pages of information. I think if you're presented with pages of information, then the risk is that you could be very well informed, but none the wiser as what really Hannon is doing in terms of making sure that these movements cross that GB land bridge as efficiently as possible. Now, the other thing I'll mention, and again, this is where I pitched this material, the level, which I hope suits everybody's needs. I'm very aware that some customers have their own preparations very well advanced. Some customers have maybe carried out their own training. Some customers are very well versed in customs procedures. So what this is really geared towards is those customers who are relying on us for our customer services. And I'll touch on later on in the material. We have no issues at all with any customers who will look at down the line doing their own declarations. So for the moment, this material is really, as I say, pragmatism is the main thing here. So I'm going to take you through the material. My name is Donald McCann. So I joined HANNON Transport about 12 months ago, and my remit really was to assist in our Brexit preparations and have us ready for Brexit on the 1st of January. After the 1st of January, my role is really to look after our own internal customs administration team. Now, whilst I've got a background in law and I've completed many courses, the one thing that I have discovered over the last year is that Brexit is not a one-case problem. You'll see later on in the material that it is many processes, and what we've done is we've broken these into smaller segments, and that's quite crucial. And you'll see that everything to do with our Brexit preparation here is process driven. So it's splitting up different parts of what we need to do so that we know exactly what each cog in the wheel has to move. Now, in terms of just going back up to here, it's not all about myself, by the way. Whilst I joined HANNON 12 months ago, senior management have been involved in the Brexit process from mid-April this year. So right through from spring, the company has been very focused on Brexit, whilst I have been liaising and leading many of the aspects of the Brexit preparation. So senior management within HANNON has been involved in all aspects, and that is absolutely crucial because it's been a collective project which everybody has had a share in. So in terms of our services, just before we come to that, HANNON has retained external customs consultants. Because we have to cross the GB land bridge, we have tapped into some consultancy advice in relation to GB. We've also acquired some consultancy advice in relation to Republic of Ireland. Not all customs requirements are strictly in black and white, but most are. So it's important that we do have our eye on the regulations, because that underpins every movement that is really underpinned by a rule. And one of the things we have to bear in mind is that from the 1st of January, and this is one of the reasons I'm guessing that the UK chose to leave the EU, was to free itself of possibly some of that whole regulatory framework. So we have to be mindful that we keep an eye on the UK regulations, because they may or may not remain aligned to what the EU are doing. So we have to just keep ourselves informed. And that's really part of my role as well, to keep an eye on what the UK does. And that's a moving target that may change, and it may change very rapidly in the next few days, where we see just how aligned the UK does become to the EU regulatory framework. If you have any queries, please do give me an email or a call. You have my email address. So just an introduction, Glenn is a key point of contact here at HANNON's. Glenn has been with us now for a number of months and assists with the management of the preparation. Glenn can be contacted at his email, and I think, as I said at the outset, if you can, please do email queries through to Glenn. It's impossible in a 45-minute slot to second guess your questions, and the best I can do is to try and put together material which hopefully answers the most. So I'm a realist. There may well be follow-ups, and if you have follow-ups, please do send those through to us, because we do rely on you as the customer. It is a two-way handshake. We need to know what's in your mind, what queries, and we're better knowing that sooner rather than later. So if you can, please send any queries through to Glenn. So just a little bit about our customs team. We have 20 administrators based here in Templepatrick. Custom team has access to and shares information with our transport management system. That's also accessed across the HANNON group. Key part of our processes here are the transport planners. But the biggest thing that I would emphasize, and you'll see this later on, is sharing of information. There are multiple processes in order to successfully and efficiently move across the GB transit. So literally, whenever goods are moving from A to B, the same data is normally required for different types of processes, and I'll explain those in a second. And one of the fundamental things that we have looked at is making sure that centrally that information is shared and accessed across the planners who are looking after your transport, but also that information can be shared and is fully visible with our own customs team. One of the risks is that if you have some people doing one of these processes or two of these processes, that information can get lost, and that's whenever it can become difficult and complex. So one of the things is to grab as much data and share that so that everybody knows exactly what pieces of information they need. As I say, that ensures complete interaction between our transport and customs team, and essentially they're aligned so that they do work hand in hand. They're going to be aligned in terms of the working hours, flexibility. That all has to be aligned and work in tandem. So we've got standing operating procedures drafted. These will be implemented from the 1st of January. These essentially map out our processes, responsibilities, worst case scenario, as opposed to best case scenario processes. So we have to plan for worst case scenario, and that's what our processes are mapped out to do at the moment. Fingers crossed, there may well be, some of those processes may well be deferred, they may well be removed, but the key thing is that we have mapped out what we believe are processes that we need come what may on the 1st of January. Part of our preparation includes applications for Irish and NI temporary storage facilities in Dublin and Ahali sites. So I'll explain a wee bit about that in a second. We identified a need to be authorised consignor and consignees. That will allow us to efficiently control our transit movements. So transit movements into Dublin can be closed on arrival at our Dublin site rather than at the port. There is, I know, a function within the PBN system, the Preboarding notification system, that may well be able to close incoming transits into Dublin. But we like to have a fallback position where any of those transit movements entering Dublin port can be shifted and moved away to our, what we call our uptown facility. So if there's any customs inspections, they can notify us, and those can take place at the temporary storage facility, as opposed to possibly, and I emphasize possibly, joining a bottleneck at the port. So that's an important part of our efficiency in order to ensure that those incoming transits into Dublin can be processed. In relation to the other side of that, the transits into Europe through Rotterdam, they seem to have an efficient system there to close arrivals. So we have got a Dutch agent who are keeping a close eye on that, and they have given us reasonable assurances at this point that those should be efficient. So we've got our transit guarantee in place. We've also got an AO approval for our Dutch entity. We're looking at having AO approval for ROI and UK entities. So we're moving into the first stage here, which is really getting us appointed as your customs agent. The direct representative, we will act as a direct representative, so we act on your behalf. Not particularly a significant issue for our transit movements, so there's not going to be any risk of tariffs or import duties. It's just a matter of getting a bit of paperwork that we are acting as your agent on file. We have to look a little bit ahead down the line that as an agent we're going to be subject to compliance inspections, so we want to do everything right as much as we can. Revenue have said, Irish Revenue, that they may well be a few months of flexibility, but we do essentially want to start doing everything correct so that we build up that rapport with the customs and with revenue and build up these trusted relationships. And that all filters back to what happens at the port. If there's issues in paperwork, and those are constant issues, that filters down to the ground. We have received advice on that from a former head of compliance in the revenue, and one of the key components was do the thing right as much as we can within the time span, and that will filter itself down to the port. and that gets to the guys on the ground where they start to identify, let's say, those companies who are putting in things that are correct and proper. I would ask you if you can download the authority, because I know the customs team here simply want to have that as a tick box. It's also, I would suggest, a tick box for you, because I think you will be open to getting possibly inspection. So it's a 2-minute, it's going to be on the website, and I would suggest if you could please download that. It just makes life easier for everybody. So for full load customers, you have the choice of completing your own transit declarations. And the reason for that, there's no issue, because ultimately, if there's an error, then you take responsibility for your load, what you have declared, including your own transit guarantee. So it's very, very simple. There's no issues at all. As I said at the very outset of this presentation, if there's customers who have got training and they're confident and they're totally at ease in putting these declarations in, there's no issue. We would have to then sit down with you, and I would still encourage you that even if you're doing that, we still want to make sure we know the processes. We still need to know who does what, when, where, and how. So once you submit a transit declaration, you get your MRN number, and we need to know when and how you're giving us that MRN. We need to also know for full load customers, are you going to look after the pre-boarding notifications? I'm going to come to those in a wee second. So it's just not a matter of saying we're looking after our own paperwork. We need to get a bit more information than that, and that is for everybody's benefit, because there's a two-way handshake here. You, us, and together we need to make sure that everything works, and that's sharing information, who does what. For groupage or part load customers, it's not an opportunity for us to grab doing this work. It's really a case of we have to complete these declarations, and the reason is really simple. If there's an error with any one of these declarations, if we left multiple customers to do their own, we're not saying there would be a problem, I'm saying there could be a problem. If there's a problem, it affects the entire movement. So we have to take control. We have to be responsible for every groupage customer, and that is a protection for not only you, it's a protection for us. We take, as I say, full control, and what comes with control comes with responsibility. So it is on us. We have to then ensure that everything is essentially correct. So just to let you know the processes, we've got essentially 2 sets of requirements here. This set of requirements in terms of the sanitary, phytosanitary, has been fortunately eased and removed, possibly entirely, but I'll chat about that in a wee second. So we've got customs, single transit T2 declaration will be required to complete customs movements to and from mainland Europe. So for those groupage movements where we have multiple items or product lines, these will all be consolidated in a one single transit declaration. So we're going to make sure that this is kept as simple and straightforward as possible. HANNON will be named as both the consignor and consignee of record, which simplifies the process. And that is going back to the form of authority. The customs authority allows us to consolidate your transits, sorry, your movements and your items and your products onto one single transit document. So as the carrier, we will also complete those safety and security declarations. So basically all transit movements will be HANNON to HANNON. The reason for that is that HANNON, we are lucky, we've got our Dutch and our Irish entity. So we're quite entitled to take control of the entire shipment. And as I say, we will then be the consignor, consignee. That makes life easier for you, makes life easier for us, because we don't then need to collect multiple pieces of information from customers in terms of consignor and consignee. So just touching on the phytosanitary, and this is very, very important. I know it has caused concerns for a lot of customers, and things move, changed. There's been webinars from the Department of Agriculture, and there's been all sorts of information coming through in it. But goods which require phytosanitary controls, you're looking at your products of animal origin, plants and plant products. European Commission has agreed with ROI, and I'm including here with a small question mark in light of yesterday's events. We hope this will all be tidied up, but NI under the NI protocol as well, assuming fully implemented. We need to just see the full text on that. There will be no need for export health certificates nor phytosanitary certificates, nor do we need notifications to border control posts via traces for these intra-EU movements. We have to include France as an exception, so movements into France, we are told by the department that those movements into France are still subject to traces and export health certificates. I don't believe, again, I'm relying on what other people have said, and it was reported in RTE media, that it was due to the fact that France's preparations are very advanced in terms of updating their IT systems, and apparently they were so advanced that the IT system couldn't carry out a risk assessment. The other member states are certainly using the T2, the transit declaration, to do a risk assessment on these products. So the Port Health would rely on the same information. That may well be changed, may change, but we'll keep an eye on that. For your plants and plant products, they will require plant passports to accompany the products. So plant passports are issued by authorized suppliers, and that's something that you need to just contact. If that's relevant, you need to contact your suppliers and ensure that that will be the case. Now, I have received copies of some correspondence that actually has been kindly passed on to us by customers who have received formal confirmation of these things from the department. I have also raised inquiry myself, and what I've done is asked for a copy of the regulations, because at the moment, or until a couple of weeks ago, there was going to be traces and notifications. I would also say this is a massive relief for those GB transits, because it cuts out a 24-hour notice period. Absolutely key in terms of planning. The customs declarations, I'll come to it in a wee second about timelines, but 24 hours was going to place a lot of stress on trying to organise the movements with that 24-hour advance notice. It also eases the admin. So essentially, you've got your transit declaration and the customs pieces and the safety security declarations just to worry about. So that certainly eases that. So the UK published its updated border operating model. I think it was the 8th of October. You can go in and have a look at that. As I said at the very outset, I am not purposely going to give you pages and pages and pages and volumes of information, because the internet and the web is absolutely stocked full of information, and the risk is, as I say, you could be overloaded. What I'm doing is here extracting the bits that I think is relevant. From the 1st of April 2021, these transit movements entering GB will require export health certificates and notifications to its border control posts. That will be using the IPAFS system. We have access to IPAFS, so we can submit those if required. Now, this is an interesting one, and this might change. We have had some feedback from a customer who has spoken to certain agencies in the UK and regarding the requirements of the UK and these transit movements. And one indication, and I just emphasize it's just an indication, that transit trailers, if they were sealed and had a list of goods in the trailer, then that may relieve, I don't know whether it'll take away the full requirement for these inspections, but it might certainly ease port health in GB. Now, that's not formal, and it's just things that have been said, and I think it's really a practical recognition that at the moment, as you know, these things are being phased in the UK, and I think they may well be struggling to have the infrastructure, and transit movements may well be least in terms of risk presenting themselves to the UK border control authorities. So that's something that we're keeping an eye on, and we've got some contacts in place that's going to keep us informed before the 1st of April. So the UK and member states of the EU have developed their own pre-boarding notifications. So we've stepped away now from the customs, which is, as I said to you, a T2 declaration. We've stepped away from the phytosanitary, which there's none, and fingers crossed there won't be any. But certainly at the moment there's no phytosanitary until the 1st of April. So what basically these pre-boarding notification systems are a common goal, and that is to ensure that only trucks carrying customs cleared, I'm just using that in inverted commas, that's where they have submitted customs declarations, that those trucks will enter or leave notified ports. And this is interesting. Not only do they have to notify the port that they are customs cleared, but the Irish PBN system actually, the ferry bookings for Dublin Port, which I've noticed, actually require the PBN system. So it's almost saying to people, to hauliers, transport companies, you don't even get to book the ferry, never mind come to the port. So that seems to be taking a step further in saying you don't even get on the ferry, you don't even get to book the ferry unless you've got your pre-boarding notification. That's quite a straightforward notification. We load in an MRN number into the system. The ferry company sends the manifest to the revenue, and that allows them, the revenue, they know exactly what's travelling. And this system has been further developed so that any movements in the Irish Sea, the driver will get notified during the sea crossing as to which routing he has to take. So the idea is that before the truck arrives into Dublin Port, the driver will know whether he can exit the port or whether he has to go for a paper check or whether it's a full inspection. And as I said to you earlier on, if any HANNON driver gets selected, the idea is that he doesn't join the bottleneck potentially at the port. He comes up to our uptown facility at the site. So that system seems to be set up in order to relieve any potential queues coming off ferries. And as I say, we complete these processes, and it's going back to what I said at the very start, that we've got multiple process boxes here, and this is just another box that needs to be ticked off. It's quite a straightforward box, but if it's not ticked off, the truck doesn't get on the ferry. So it's equally as important to take care of this particular process as any other process, because these processes combine together, make sure that the entire movement goes from A to B. So we're looking at, as I said to you, a very, very simple, high-level, three-stage approach. we open the transit for departure. That leaves the port sent to the office of departure. In between, we've got these pre-boarding notifications, so those have to be sent to the Irish ports, to the GB ports, also to the Dutch ports as well. So this box here contains maybe 3-4 different processes that we carry out, and this is why I didn't want to overcomplicate things. Once then the movement arrives into the arrival, the transit closes. So that's a very high level step through approach of the processes. Internally, our customs team have been divided and aligned to complete these processes internally. So it's all about, as I said at the start, about everybody having responsibilities and knowing what bit of these pieces they have to complete. And as I said at the start, it's all about making sure we've got the information. So the starting point is we can't do anything unless we've got the information to go in here. Once we have that information, we can jump into this box and we can jump further. So I'm going to come to how we get the information just in a second, but this is just a simple high-level 3-stage approach of how that typical transit movement will complete itself. So this is what I call the how, when, and what customs information we process, we need from you from the 1st of January. We have spent some time developing our what we call a web portal, and this is the first screen. I will say, by the way, just to preempt any questions, people may say, when is this going to go live? My understanding is I'm not directly in charge of the web portal, but we are at the moment doing test runs on this web portal, where we're loading in test data, and it is going to go live on the 28th of December. But in the meantime, customers will be sent out their email, their login credentials. So you are going to get that in the next week, and that will give you your login. So this is going to be the front face of what you'll see whenever you log in. Once you go in here, you have your own customer code that'll be issued to you. What I would say is that at this stage, whenever you log into the portal, this portal is to obtain customs information only. So there's going to be a 2-stage approach here. Whenever you book your load or your consignment, you will contact the planners as you do today, whatever way and means that is. That could be email, telephone, whatever way that is. The transport planners will do as they do today. So we wanted to keep this as simple and as consistent for you as the customer, consistent for the planners. Planners will then issue you with a job reference number. Once you get the job reference number, that then is keyed in here. And what I would also say to everybody at this point is that you cannot and should not key in information until you're absolutely sure that whatever you're giving us is complete. I'll come to that in a wee second, and the reason for that is not that we want to be awkward or punish people or trying to place a burden on you. It's just once we consolidate that T2 document, if you remember back to what I said about we were putting potentially multiple commodity codes, multiple customer reference numbers onto one transit, we have to have it accurate, and we have to ensure that this information is what we're going to consolidate. So you've got your job reference number, the customs route. Whenever you go in here, it'll just be, in this one, it'll be EU to EU transit. This here will be blanked out, grayed out, because that will be set at a default for HANNON. Aurora number is the exporter, HANNON is the importer. So what we're doing here, just as you pick up, we're trying to dim down, if I can say that, the amount of information we need from you. We basically want to reduce this to the absolute minimum to make it as easy as possible for both you and ourselves. So this here will involve just your name. This would be a contact name, so that somebody out of the customs team had to make contact with you. We know who it is that's looking after this. Invoice number, that may well be dimmed down, because we don't, strictly speaking, need the commercial invoice for the transit movement. That is useful where it gives us the data, and many commercial invoices will have a list of commodity codes, values, and so forth, but that same information can just as easily be keyed in here. Incoterms ordinarily are not really significant in terms of these transit movements. The only thing you need to set up with your supplier, with your customer rather, is really who is taking control of paying for the cost of the transit. Obviously, because there's no tariffs, that's taken out of the equation. So Incoterms for transit, these movements that we're talking about this morning, don't play a large role, and I think that we will exclude as well. So that will be removed from a data requirement. Invoice currency, again, this is where we do need the value of the goods. Collection date, collection time, collection address. We need to have that information in order to complete some of our declarations as well, so you need to provide that to us. Delivery date, delivery time, delivery address. Again, the delivery address, that will be taken out for your transit, since that will be a HANNON to HANNON. Consignor to consignee will be HANNON. You can here, by the way, we have put in flexibility that you can put in some information. This is an open text box, so we wanted to avoid the need that we're driving you towards these fixed boxes. If there is anything that you need to put in here, ask a question, and once this is submitted, then our customs team here will pick up any queries or questions, and the person identified as the contact, then they can contact them. This is the most important piece. Commodity codes are absolutely key, and some people may have provided commodity codes to us. Commodity codes, we were looking and inviting people a number of months ago to provide commodity codes, and there wasn't a huge appetite from customers to get any commodity codes. So what we did was we set up the system that the commodity codes would be entered as part of your transaction data, part of this information. So the system here will allow you to pop in your commodity code. There is a search facility, so it'll start, once you start to enter your digits, it'll start to assist you and make prompts. You don't need to worry about product code unless you have that's your own individual SKU or whatever reference code you have. Origin country will be removed. That transport type pallet, you can see there the options. Again, temperature will be removed. We don't need that. Originally, this was designed that some of this information would also be shared with the planners. So again, that's not going to be required. Number of pallets, obviously number of items, number of packages, we do need that. So you do need to put that in. Gross net weights, we do need that in, and item values. Once you do that, you press save. There is an option further down on the screen here that will give you the option of adding a further commodity code. And once you do that, you're in the position then that you can submit your customs information. And that, once it's received by us, will come straight here to the team who's looking after the EU transits. And we have then, as I say, part of our process is we check that information internally, We make sure that there's no queries. One of the things is we look and make sure that the information is correct. So there is a sense check carried out by us. So it's not a matter of just sending in the information and somebody presses a button and it's just completely automated. Because if you remember what I said, we have to ensure that we're responsible for the accuracy of all the information. So that is taken care of us on our end. We then get a transit declaration submitted. We get an MRN number, and that then allows us to go to the next phase, which is creating the pre-boarding notifications that we have to do as well. So timelines, we've chatted to some customers about this. Customs information, regrettably, we do need that 4-hour window before time of loading. Sadly, assuming the 1st of January does bring these changes, we just can't avoid this. So there is a window. There is obviously minimum times per the regulations. So we don't want to just go in completely at the last minute here submitting declarations. We do have to allow this 4-hour window to allow ourselves to check the information, to allow ourselves to submit the information, to get an MRN number, and then to allow that to go to the planning team. As I say, we have to then complete those pre-boarding notification as well. Information for transit, as I say, we're trying to reduce the data set right down, dim everything down as much as we can. We have checked with Irish Revenue, we've checked, our Dutch agent has also liaised with Dutch authorities to ensure that we are, while submitting the minimum amount of data, we're still submitting the correct data. And as I say, the information from you must be correct. We do rely on the information coming to us is correct. There's a level of checking that we will do, but we can't check every single commodity code to ensure that it's correct. And in the Customs Authority, there's a little line just to say that, you know, you have to check that. So, as I said to you earlier on, you do need to contact the planners. They're your first point of call. That's what you do today. They do their work first, and once that's done, then the customs information is submitted through that web portal. So next steps for you, ensure that you've got all the required information that we need before the 1st of January. At the moment, and I know, and I'm trying to head off this question before it comes at me, I absolutely understand there's been a number of queries coming to me from customers. We have now virtually got our rates finalised. These should be as competitive, if not more competitive, than any other current market rates. I think we have said to certain customers that the reason, and the main reason why we're providing customs services, is that it works hand in hand with our transport services. So we're very, very alert that we want to make sure that this, first of all, works, which it will from the 1st of January, and in parallel with that, that we do provide competitive rates. But as you've seen, it is end-to-end processes here. So, you know, we are responsible, and we do have to carry that responsibility, and that carries overheads and costs. But as I say, we've looked at all our market rates, and that's what we're basing our prices on. If a customer confirms, we will do our own paperwork. I do get this from time to time. We do need to know just what that means. As I said to you, there's end-to-end processes which we take care of, and the reason why they're simplified processes, I'm not saying they're simple, but we have simplified them because we can share all the information centrally. So we don't need to go looking for bits and pieces of information from A to B and back from B to A. And once you do all of that, these are very fast moving situations. It slows everything down. So we need to know, even if a customer is doing their own transit declarations, what does that mean? And that's not to be awkward, it's to be open and to make sure that come the 1st of January, it's going back to that who does what, when and where. So if any customer wants to chat about that, we do need to know, do you want to look after the entire end-to-end? So as I say, for those movements, i.e. GB and mainland Europe, there are these pre-boarding notifications. There's also exit and entry summary declarations as well, which legally we as the carrier are liable for those declarations being correct and being accurate in the first instance. So as I say, and I apologize, I am running ahead. I'm looking at the time and I said to you at the start that I couldn't time myself here. I wanted to, this is the most important part, was to get this material across to you. So all material must be published on all material will be published in the Brexit section of our website. So you needn't worry, this is going to go up on the website. Also, there's going to be a talk through of our HANNON web portal. That's going to actually show you the portal, how it's, walk you through that, talk you through it, whatever. If there's any specific queries in that, as I say, please do come back. Customer logins will be sent out shortly. Very important. This is really, really important. We have carried out a huge amount of preparations, and we have done a huge amount of work in behind the scenes. As I said to you at the start, this is fairly high level. I purposely did not want to give you 50 pages of information, because what you want to see is just simply how we do things. But the how we do things is in the background. We will be making updates. There is no doubt that updates will be required, and those updates are a good thing. They're not a negative, because we'll be taking on board whatever feedback, constructive or otherwise, from customers, and we're constantly looking at new systems. We are, at the moment, as we speak, looking at all our systems that are not yet on the market, but we can see that they may well streamline these processes further. And we can see that after the 1st of January, there is going to be systems become available. So what we have got, we think, is a solution, a very functional solution, but it's not the end game for us. So there's going to be more, as I say, updates. Sealed trailers, as I said to you at the start, I put that in on a question mark. We have to keep an eye on this, but until the 1st of April, sealed trailers is something that may well be good practice, whether it's going to replace any phyto notifications. But as I say, we have the luxury in these GB transit movements. So I think, folks, question and answer section, as I said to you, the email is the best way to email Glenn. And what I do see, there's been a couple of questions. Is there still not going to be a logjam at ports? There's bad media coverage of the GB land bridge. These are all perfectly understandable questions, and any customers that we have had dealings with, what we have said, and which is pretty much what I have said in this material, we are prepared as much as we can, and we can see how these pre-boarding notification systems are designed and set up. We cannot give 100% guarantees, but one sure thing is they're set up to, particularly the Irish system, seems to be set up to refuse even any haulier or transport company that even wants to book a ferry. And that's quite impressive in a good way if you're set up. So the ports in GB, we have to look at these systems and assume that they will work. I am not in charge of operations. I know that I see questions, direct sailings. There's problems with that, and any of those customers on this will have already been made aware from David and myself and Aid has sat in sessions, and that is not the answer to this. There's problems with the booking, the capacity. I read a statistic, and it was 150,000 trucks pass through GB each year. I've seen that in the Institute of Government, and I don't know where 150,000 trucks are going to go on direct sailings. As I say, I'm not an expert in this, and David and Aid has sat in meetings, and I think those customers that we have sat in have identified and accepted that direct sailings are not the cure for all Brexit ills. There's cancellation issues. If a ferry is cancelled, there's problems with time-sensitive goods. There's problems with the logistics of getting to the ports. So as far as we're concerned, the processes that I have mapped out, I hope give you an insight as to really, as far as we're concerned, we're doing what we can for that GB land bridge. So I don't see, there's a couple of follow-up queries. I've identified testing on the portal. So folks, as I say, please do email queries. All of this information is going to go on the website, and we do want to interact with you through the email. There's plenty of people here that will do that, so if you can, please send in your emails, and I will try, myself and Glenn, to come back on that and reply to you. So look, all that I can say is thank you very much for showing up. I appreciate it. This is not the start and end. This is just simply the start. This is really just to let you know what we can do, and there may well be a lot of blanks to fill in, and I'm happy to try and engage and fill those in with you, as indeed is Glenn and the rest of the team here. So thank you. Appreciate it, and as I say, contact us and follow up, please. All of this information is going to go on the website. Thank you.